One of the best benefits that survivors get from working with our team is that they get access to a number of supportive people that can help them understand the process and improves communication between them and individuals that they work with in their team. So for example, I have a dedicated clerk on most of my files, but if they need immediate help, we have a social worker, an intake coordinator that can refer to resources. We have an admin that can keep them updated regularly, schedule calls, make sure that they have touch points, and basically having a team of experts in this area available make sure that we are always looking at the nuanced issues appropriately, and we're coming up with the best not only arguments for the survivors, but the best way to help them get closure and achieve justice in a way that works for them. So survivors don't often understand some of their legal options at the outset include a number of things in addition to civil litigation. So survivors, for example, will think they will have to have filed a police report or achieved a criminal conviction before they can proceed with a civil lawsuit. That's not the case. They can choose to do either, or they can choose to do just one or the other. The two are related, legally speaking, but they're not necessary for the other one to happen. Another misunderstanding that survivors will have sometimes is they'll misunderstand how long after the assault a survivor is allowed to either report to the police or come forward to start a lawsuit. In Ontario, survivors may not know that there is no limitations period in place. And so survivors of any age from any time can come forward whenever they're ready. And so the law recognizes they can start a lawsuit or file a police report anytime after the assault happened, even decades later. What can make accountability more complex against cases you bring against institutions as a survivor of sexual assault is with the institutions, you have to prove that they either knew or ought to have known about what was going on. So for example, in cases of child welfare cases where a Children's Aid Society is responsible for a child, if they are aware through the child's behavior that the child is now experiencing some sort of trauma because the child's acting out or running away from home or showing defiance or destructive behavior where there was none before, the Children's Aid Society could be said to know or that they ought to have realized that something was going on with that child. So there are different requirements for things like evidence, corroboration, and even proving what sort of behaviors they knew about that should have triggered them to then take steps to investigate, supervise better, intervene, or even remove the child from that situation. So this is sometimes what we refer to as negligence. And so negligence is something additional a survivor has to prove against an institution rather than as against an individual perpetrator, where really the story is whether or not the sexual assault story is to be believed, the survivor is to be believed. In addition to achieving a legal outcome, we want survivors to recover fully from a trauma and harm that they've really seriously suffered. The law actually refers to what's happened to them as an interference with their dignity. So it's not just that their legal rights have been in some way impaired, it's that them as a fundamental human has suffered a major injury in every aspect of their life, and so it affects every aspect of their life. So in terms of outcomes, not only do I want my clients to get justice, but I want them to get closure so they can start to put that behind them. I want them to get a recovery plan in place so they can treat themselves and move into the future properly. And I want them to regain their power and their voice, which is what's stolen from them when they suffer sexual violence. When I look back on working with survivors, what I hope they remember the most is that I helped them understand that they were in charge and they had the power in them the whole time. Survivors come to me because they've suffered a significant injury to their dignity, their ability to trust. Their sense of power and control over their lives has been severely impaired, and they feel, in a lot of cases, like the perpetrator has taken away their power and their voice. So what I hope survivors take away from engaging in the justice process and working with me is that it was in them all along to stand up, to find their voice, and to get their own sense of justice.